Sign lady.
I'm getting this going, it's a new program.
You're good, you're getting your retirement. And all these crazy things going on in your life.
Passionate about doing this.
Yeah, it's starting to take care of my
comments
dad
I
now.
did, it's not
So we're-
negative.
that's the thing, I've got to keep going on.
You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
whether I'm
Well,
saying
it's
right things
just
or
what
not.
you gotta do.
Part of life, yeah.
Trying to get a routine going.
Right.
Maybe
It's going all right. Maybe.
He's way in college, these are,
Driving.
yeah.
So,
His little girls.
Yeah, my dad's 87, and I can see that happening in the next few years. They probably won't come willingly if he's playing right.
well, I mean, it's their last.
Well, I think the first
That
meeting
would
we
be
did,
good.
I
So
said
now,
that was
Right.
was concerned
Now
about
it's
some of that stuff
all these
going
little
on
things that
outside of
go on.
here. You know, I can remember her, you know,
That goal thing, it just, it's,
even if we disagree on certain things, it has nothing to do
It's
with
gotta be
how
hard.
we behave
Yeah.
towards each other.
It's gotta be hard.
Yeah.
you gotta look at it and go, I ain't got much more to do.
Yeah.
You got any little bit of
Yeah.
control of
Well, I enjoy doing it, I like it.
You want to hold on for as long as you can.
Okay.
Things like, I feel like it's in my face.
Where was that?
Who's
Okay.
Jeff?
I have a few customers over in Spring Lake,
And of course, the problem with it is, okay, what happens when a business comes in front of me? And I know, whether they approve lots simultaneously, selling them the lake.
Right.
This is great, doing this, doing that, so.
Audrey? Hello, my name is Doug Roberts. I'll be speaking tonight as the chairperson. It's the first time, so I hope it's not a horrible experience for you, because I really don't know what I'm doing.
Alright, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what you're supposed to be doing.
Neither do I.
So he's gonna fake it really well.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make
And I'll
it.
say you did a great job.
Stefan taught my son in fourth grade at Chatfield.
Oh, okay.
And my sister-in-law, Christy Hustis, is like the IT specialist or whatever there.
And she's
Fine, I
the
got 2 minutes before.
interim director. right
Yeah,
now.
interim director right now, so yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm familiar with him, so.
yeah.
So are you somehow related, is there a Carly Eustace?
That's my niece.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's who, I thought it was my daughter or my son went to preschool at Bishop Kelly with
Yeah,
her.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, their dad is Rick Hustis.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
He used to
There
own
he
Lake
is.
Inn.
yeah, that's how I would remember, yeah.
Did you walk here? No. Neither did I.
I drove, but then I ran up.
Next week, probably, at least then.
It's too cold really to walk very
Am
far.
I supposed to have
I know
a
what I said, I would drop him off. I was like, no, I'm like, okay.
I want to be shortchanged, if I'm gonna do this.
He's like, he used to
Scarf
being
on this
outside.
morning. Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
like, he didn't have any gloves on his hands. I'm like, okay, take my
That is
gloves.
not, that is not good to not have.
He's like, well, I got pockets I can just stick my hands in. I'm like, okay.
What's that? Oh, the black? He's got it. I actually practiced this earlier, trying to remember exactly what. Because I don't pay attention to some of the rules. Okay. Oh, especially if nobody shows up.
How you doing? Nice shoes you got.
Yeah. Oh, they're.
I've got a few new ones.
The big boy in Davidson.
Oh,
They're redoing that, gotta just redo it. They finished that, which is nearing completion.
You got, I think you got.
I'm gonna try to be up for Saturday, to be like single 11. I'm not sure I'll bring the bike, but I'll always come up and hang out. Or see it.
Yeah. Sure, it's actually the time that started with an access. Did they go
Scramble.
by?
How are you?
Did you know Joe Scramble?
Good. Last time you stayed in
Alice.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's kind of
At one point they were.
Because-
for a while.
I mean, I ride my bike at like 65
The other one, explain that.
so I'll show off all Yeah, Phil,
I'm
I'm gonna have a basketball hanging on.
Oh. Very good.
Work Christmas.
All right, Deb, you ready? All right, it is 6:30. We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. Was that right?
Wow, that was really loud.
That's what I do though too.
That's how excited I am.
That's exciting.
Kim, do you have roll call?
I do.
Okay. Next on our list is the approval of the December 12, 2024 agenda, which you guys have in front of you.
I'll move the agenda.
I will second.
We have a motion to approve the agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then to, any opposed? Motion carries. All right, mental note. Next on our list, we have the minutes from last month's meeting. You also have a copy of that in front of you.
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Do you have a second? Josh? Do we have any discussion? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Now is the time for public comments, and unless Jeff's got something to say. Doesn't appear that we have anybody here to make a comment. So do we give this any time, or?
Seeing none.
Seeing none, hearing none, we will close public comments. The next section is public hearings scheduled. There are none scheduled. We'll go ahead and move on from that. Section F, site plan reviews. We also have none of those. Nothing to discuss. We'll move on from that. In other business, El Cozumel, 1109 South Main Street, and I believe Alex is going to fill us in.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you're staying warm. El Cozumel, just want to give a little synopsis of where they're at. They're obviously in the south end of Maine. It's a new development, if you recall, of a new development for a Mexican restaurant. I just provide you some of the elevations of the building and the general site plan of the site. And the parking, there would be a required motion by the Planning Commission, item C, to approve a one-time, one-year site plan extension for El Cozumel. The background story is that they're very busy right now in completing a site in Davidson, and then hope to start construction here in spring for the Cozumel Pier.
Mr. Brickku, is there anything from, I guess, a planning and zoning perspective that's keeping them up other than the MDOT driveway situation?
No, I just,
No, we received written MDOT approval as submitted. They sent us the correspondence from MDOT approving it, so they just have to pay for it and put up the insurance, and they won't do that till they get closer to construction. But I had MDOT's approval of the design, the correspondence.
Okay, but there's no outstanding needs to redo anything?
no, they just have to go to the building department for permits.
So we can just move on from that.
No, I'd make a
So I
motion
move-
that we authorize a site plan extension for El Cozumel as presented.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion at this point? No discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Now we go on to building exterior material and color guide review, my favorite thing to talk
Favorite
about.
topic.
I love it.
So as you may see in your packet, there is a very rough draft of what a document may look like. We're just kind of looking for suggestions or feedback for a handout to help developers or anyone looking to improve or invest in the community. So obviously the whole idea is to provide an intent, a purpose for it, about how it's applicable to new sites and developments and structures and accessory structures. We're talking about, requiring archways and building walls. What is this part? Okay, very good. So key requirements for all building exterior design principles require archways, building walls over 50 feet must include breaks and windows and accents. So this, we've provided here kind of a sample idea of a building that's, considered to be high design, that includes all the different design elements that would potentially be a complementary structure, new development in a historic community like yourselves in the city of Lapeer.
Alex, I'm sorry, can I jump in for a second?
Sure.
Is this what's in our ordinance already, or is this what you're gonna propose at some point for modification?
So this is part of the ordinance right now. And so what we're doing is we're taking that out and putting it into something that's tangible for them to use.
The pictures aren't in the,
No, this
Okay.
is just for you guys.
okay, I'm
No,
like, I
this
don't see
is-
these pictures.
This is putting the
That's a nice
pictures into a, yeah, that's not part of the ordinance. This is something to hand out for them to
Yes,
get.
examples.
Examples of
Yes.
colors and
Okay,
and stuff. So we're just going through that right now and just kind of get your thoughts on
yeah,
if this is the right direction, or just, I can come back with other ideas and samples. And so I'm just trying to put something together for you guys to view before we perhaps put something together for any applicant to come in and that, they come for a pre-development meeting with myself or other staff members. Continue on, one of the elements, of course, we need 20% windows on principal walls. Just kind of showing what that ratio would look like. Obviously, it's up for them to demonstrate that they're gonna meet that requirement. Obviously, they're not gonna have one window, they'll have multiple windows, but at minimum, they need to have 20%. This would be a building that definitely meets that standard. More contemporary, however, has high design, including all the types of archways and in traditional building elements. Going on, we would have overhead doors, showing that overhead doors can't face public streets. And additionally, they need to have match the height proportions, materials of existing buildings in the vicinity, so you can't have a building that mismatches proportional wise to other structures in the area. Building materials is another category, preferred materials, of course, so one is having durable, earth resistant, provide a variety of quality appearance. Earth tone is what we've discussed before in terms of what the zoning ordinance requirements. So there's a palette of earth tones. You can change the palette, of course. Another area is the preferred materials, decorative tile-up panels. There's a sample of that. Maybe it's not the best. I can find other samples if you like. Wood is other building materials, native stones or textured concrete masonry units. And there's obviously a whole kind of assortment of different products out there in the construction world. But with that being said, developers can come forward and show that there's a new product or something that they feel as if works best for their project. Obviously, glass and stucco are materials that are approved. Smooth concrete block is accent materials, and so is EFIS is an approved accent materials. These are not primary materials; these are just accent materials. Another accent materials is prefabricated steel panels. Yep.
I do have a question because isn't this sort of similar in nature to what Blaine's was asking with those prefabricated insulated panels? We got hung up a little bit on that. I think it was Marty and I that were kind of asking, how do you handle new materials moving forward as far as being in the master plan? Because I think that there could be a lot of new stuff. How do you handle those? Is it case by case? Are they excluded?
Well, the issue with these steel panels is, of course, you can put up some extremely cheap looking buildings that look like pole barns with steel panels.
Sure.
That's what we don't want.
No, exactly.
So I believe, I forget what district this is, Alex, if you could help me with it. But the ordinance requires or allows steel panels to be an accent material, but not the majority of the building.
Okay.
Now, of course, there was negotiations going on with Blaine's at the time about allowing you know, in certain places and not others, and we were doing the best we absolutely could to work with them.
Right.
That deal did not fall apart because of the metal panels.
No, I was less interested about that deal as I was about future stuff being brought, because it didn't meet the way I understood it. If it wasn't really approved by the master plan, how do we handle introducing new, you know, it's a changing market, so how do you handle new?
Well, I thought actually around the time that that discussion was going on, I actually thought we were gonna potentially have some type of workshop where we invited maybe some, you know, we wanted feedback from like some builders that either did, you know, commercial construction or even residential, that could talk about these particular panels to determine whether or not this is something we should be looking at, or should we be leaving as an accent? Because I do think, I thought it was the EFIS panels that we were talking about. But I think that's why I would be uncomfortable, like, deciding whether this should be not accent anymore until I would know, I'd want more information, I think. I couldn't just make a decision, you know, on that kind of thing tonight.
So I'm glad you guys brought that up, because that's exactly where I put a question mark there for you guys to talk about, so you're on page with me. So here is, you know, it says prefabricated panels, and this is under the accent materials. So perhaps there could be a contemporary building that provides accent, not the primary building or a part of a building to be that of metal. I can see the application of steel panels as you can see here, perhaps some sort of larger commercial and or industrial project. That is where you're really seeing a lot of that because of just, you know, the nature of what the building is intended to do. So, you know, we could remove that. We could still allow as an accent material and provide a different example of what that would look like, or allow someone to provide an example for them as how they can put metal as a accent material on other commercial buildings, but that perhaps as an industrial use, it can be a primary material for their use, or not, because, you know, we want that building to be broken up over 50 feet, and most industrial buildings will be over 50 feet on, you know, linear foot on one side. So between windows and different materials, that's obviously up for the planning commission to decide, because it's your community and you set the standards of what you want. You can have or allow for a applicant to come in and demonstrate to you that this is the best fit for this type of building and this situation. There are some, you know, investments in the John Connolly industrial area that, you know, perhaps would want to do steel panels like this. I've seen these around, you know, the I-75 corridor, I-69 recently, with steel construction for warehousing and distribution, just because of, you know, where the economy is and such. So this is an idea for you guys. We could discuss this further, but this is kind of a question I had in terms of what direction you were thinking.
Do we not currently allow that in industrial zoned areas? I mean, I'm pretty sure we have some steel-sided buildings.
Yeah, so as it stands, it applies to both industrial and commercial. Now, we could make an amendment and look at allowing just, you know, steel panels as that for industrial. You know, these are things we can look at, so.
I think it's a lot of communities allow steel panel buildings in their industrial zones. My previous one did. Matter of fact, I wrote the ordinance that allowed it in my previous
Right.
community. I see no problems with that. I have no objections to that. Certainly not in a commercial area, but in an industrial area, it makes sense. Thoughts?
I agree with that.
I don't have a problem with it. I just think if we're gonna make some changes on all this stuff, that we kind of do it all at once.
Yeah.
I know that it's gonna be continuously changing, but I'd hate to have a developer, each one come in every month to see if we can update it. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that maybe we can, whatever changes that we need to do tonight,
So just so I understand, Alex.
go through and approve.
I'm sorry. So just so I understand, Alex, on the steel panels, our current ordinance doesn't allow steel panels at all, even if it's industrial.
No, you allow as an accent material. So you'll
Okay, so
see in
that-
John Connolly, you'll see a combination of brick and then some steel. 49%.
And just in industrial though?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, in
No,
all
all,
buildings,
in
all
commercial
buildings. So
and
there's nothing
industrial.
really different between in commercial and industrial at this point. Now, we could do that, that's a thought, I'm just throwing that out there, because we are discussing how do we demonstrate to applicants what we want to see, just based on that, because we have a lot of requests from folks not understanding the difference between earth tones, they think black's earth tone, and it's not, et cetera, et cetera. So we do have a lot of folks inquiring about that. So we could put something in front of them that here's a visual sample of what our ordinance says and how you can come back with something that works instead of going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And we can sit down with them. Now, my question is, obviously, as things have changed, as you guys have mentioned, you know, industrial buildings and steel fabricated panels is a thing now. We do allow prefabricated steel panels as accent materials. We can leave it at that, but maybe perhaps we, you know, changed it for industrial purposes. It's just a thought.
So just one thing, I am in favor of fabricated steel panels, but the ordinance I wrote, I think it was the bottom 3 or 4 foot, especially the entrance area had to be a brick material of some kind that was, if you hit it with your car, steel panel's gonna look bad forever. And that was adjacent to the entrance and any like parking areas that were at the front of the building. But the rest of the building, I didn't care. You could have it steel all the way to the ground. So you're looking at it as from the primary material perspective then.
Right, and that could be part of it, is that, you know, the sides that do not face the public street, you know, need to be, we could keep the same materials, but the other sides of the building can be steel.
Yeah, you know what, I'd even be, I think we'd have to talk about it some more, but I'd be in favor of allowing steel panels even in commercial areas where they don't see the public parking lot, the public streets. For instance, you know, along the I-69 corridor, you put a parking lot in the front, people walk to the front of the building, that should look nice. I mean, the loading dock in the back where nobody ever goes, I mean, I bet you if you drove around the Walmart loading dock area, it's not gonna look nice. But the public never sees that either. If it's something we can do that would be to the strong benefit of, you know, the developer's cost, maybe it's something we should consider.
So when you
Which is
say
what we
commercial,
proposed to Blaine's.
I'm
where
sorry?
you don't- Which is what was proposed to Blaine's, where allow it where the public doesn't see it.
Which may have been proposed to Blaine, so I can neither deny nor confirm.
so you're talking about that being in a commercial area. So when you say commercial, are you talking about non-downtown, right? We're talking about stuff that's not in the downtown area?
Yeah, it could be like the B2 or B3, you know.
Okay, because I wouldn't want to see that in downtown.
No, right, but, I mean, it's up to you guys.
Yeah, and this was to be historical in nature, so it would not be a good thing.
Well, the public really does see all sides
Yeah,
of
you
the
can see
building.
all the sides, yeah.
That was my one concern when I looked through this. I was like, that probably shouldn't be downtown, but then
Yeah.
there is the note in there about the historic areas.
Well, the downtown area is surrounded by public streets and parking lots on all sides.
We need to make it clear that it's not in the downtown.
These panels come in color, different colors?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's red.
Okay, continue on.
Hey,
No,
Alex, just a second, I got a question.
On the steel panels, like everything else, they come in different grades of material.
Mhm.
Can we make sure that they're a better grade material and not a flimsy material?
This is where I got hung up.
So, again, in the ordinance I wrote in my previous community, there was a minimal width that we wrote into that, because you're right, there's a gauge of the steel or something. And there was an industry standard, and I didn't allow anything less than that.
Yes, I'd like that, because obviously thicker, the more dent resistant, et cetera, it'll be. So if it goes up, we want it to last.
Well, yeah, I mean, because if a developer is gonna save money by putting cheap steel on the side of the building and then they have a hailstorm a week later,
Mhm.
you have a dented up brand new building that looks like garbage, right?
Yep.
So, because part of this is you wanna be open to working with big companies that wanna put in businesses. But you also have to understand they're trying to do it as cheap as possible, right? Which is kind of what Blaine's told us. They told us this was in an effort to save money on those steel panels, and I don't think that was the best way to present that, because
Exactly.
even though I thought those panels were nice, that stood with me a little bit, right? So, anyway.
So I guess, just to reiterate the points, the way Alex can make a note of this, are we okay with this in an industrial area in some way?
I mean, I think industrial is fine. I would like to see like the front facade be something different, but I think it's fine in industrial areas.
Would you be okay with what I propose, the first 4 feet or so being a brick material and steel above that?
On the like where the door would be, like the front.
Yeah.
I guess, as long as it's industrial, I don't think I would want that in commercial areas. I think that's my feeling.
I agree.
Then how does this board feel about commercial areas, steel panels in areas that are not adjacent to public roads or public parking lots? So
That's
at
fine.
least so Alex can work on language to then bring
Right.
back to us.
That's fine.
My thought is, I think your language is pretty good as it is, because you do have a ratio in it, and then a lot of new contemporary designs do have steel accent, Core-10, all those different materials, so, I can look at it, but, I think, I can see the industrial one for sure being changed.
On the commercial one, we would want to make sure they're all earth tone colors.
Not
No bright
Smurf
color,
blue.
yeah, no bright colors.
Well, we're gonna get into that in a minute here, so.
Define.
Hey, Alex, before you move on, so the mayor asked a question about how do we kind of approve things without going on a one-on-one basis? But doesn't the ordinance say something effective, or other high-quality materials, so that if a new material comes online, they could at least present it to us? Because I believe, is it stucco, where the board approved it, and now that is considered an approved material for other projects in the future?
Yes.
So that's something we could use, a mechanism we could use moving forward?
Yes, I mean, certainly you can, I mean, you set the standard of what kind of the minimum is, requirements, that they can come before you and say how their material, their product, or how they have said everything and demonstrated as a better option, and that can come before you guys, and you can approve those things. I mean, those are totally, to the discretion of the planning commission, so.
That's what they did for the stucco.
And that's what you did for the stucco, however, I completely disagree with stucco, that's another story, as a former builder.
Could be wrong, but I think there was some discussion on would the developers know that they could come to us? Or how would they know that they could come to us and perhaps propose a new material or a different material? Do we resolve that?
Well, I think that's a point of contact issue with the city. They're in contact with Ms. Hodge and Ms.
So you would
Riku and myself.
let them know, correct?
I think the thing is we have a pretty good base of the materials that are standard materials in construction. The difference is a subset within that material, right? Is it what kind of steel, what kind of stone, what kind of masonry block? That's the difference we're talking about. I don't think you guys are missing anything there that exists for the most part. It's a subset within that. So we did talk about, obviously textured concrete masonry units. I mean, there's different types of styles and materials and compounds that do different things that perhaps are more structural or more decorative. So it's essentially, we're talking about, metal, brick, stucco, whatever type of materials. I mean, glass, whether it's a native stone or panels or whatever it may be, we're pretty much talking about the same stuff. It's just that they may have a new way of applying it or using it for the veneer essentially, in combination with what structural demands it does. So they may come in and say, look, we need to have steel here for structural reasons or whatever it may be. So like I said, that can be answered by you guys. That's up to your discretion. So it's a good point, but I think you do have an answer for that.
I just wanted to make sure that we wouldn't lose a potential project just for them looking at the documents and going, well, they don't approve this, and then not come to us. That was my only concern, because and perhaps that doesn't happen, I don't know, but.
Putting my city manager hat on for a second, that doesn't happen.
Okay, very good.
Okay, very good. So, speaking of building materials, you have a category called special requirements. This is around metal roofs are allowed if particularly it's compatible. You have historic district, facade should match neighboring buildings using brick, wood, or glass. You know, having worked in historic preservation with dozens upon dozens of historic districts, this is perhaps your weakest point, to be honest with you, in terms of what your historic district and what types of regulations you have and how you can protect your assets. I think this should be something that you would maybe consider revisiting at some point, as it's,
From working in other areas, do you have suggestions that you've drafted that maybe you could bring back to us to say this would be better protect your historical area?
yeah, so, and that's a great point, and the semantics of it is historic versus historical. Historic is
Right.
actual.
Yeah, historical.
Is like, you know, imitation. So you do have historic buildings, it's a historic community, historic district. With that being said, you know, you want to match the design elements that would be pertaining to that building. So if that building is from 1870, it should look like it's from 1870. That doesn't mean that a new building that is 2024 can't be in your district. I mean, that's at 2024. We don't want a building to then look like it's trying to be 1870, because that never really works out too well. However, you know, with scale, mass, proportions, stuff like that do matter, even if it's contemporary, that would fit in there. So this is something that I think is something that you guys could look at. There's a wealth of information out there in the state of Michigan in terms of historic districts and how that's applicable to, at the very least, protect your community. I don't think you have a whole lot here right now, from what I've seen, that wouldn't allow someone to dramatically alter any building as they please. So I know that has to come before you, but it just can make it a little more tricky and cumbersome.
So this right here is what we have right now, that's what's in our current ordinance?
Pretty much, it's just say we want to see this type of materials, but the thing is we're missing
Right,
the design element.
right.
You can have the materials, you can have the Lego pieces, but it needs to look like that of what you have in that district, if that makes sense.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, I mean, if obviously you have this experience in other areas, maybe you could bring some suggested language, pictures, you know, drawings that would be helpful to us in being able to, you know, adopt those.
Well, the first part of that is that I don't believe you have a historic district.
No, I'm just
Right,
saying,
yeah.
but there are like design elements that we could
Yeah.
still utilize.
Yeah, it's a layered approach, and that's part of that, solving that puzzle, and that everything to protect your community. You know, there's different layers into that. You have, I would say, if anything, very rudimentary approach to it at this point. You could definitely move forward. Obviously, you know, I've traveled to this community maybe 20 years ago in my profession, first time. You know, things have really progressed the last few years, and so you have an interest in new investment in the community. And so, as stewards of the community, and as your consultant, I'd be remiss about saying that it's something you guys should look at.
Thank you.
Yeah. Moving forward, we have obviously, once again, historic design elements. I put this in here for that reason, our conversation we had of what kind of makes up buildings from yesteryear, if you will. So, you know, what are some of the design elements that we should be considering? The cornice, parapets, a lot of these parts of the buildings have been lost, you know, they fell over, never replaced. It's an art that's coming back. These are things that can really increase elements of design, scale, and mass in your community. Obviously, windows, you know, entries, you know, all the entries really, I could go from one building to another, and I could really tell you what building era that's from based on just its entry, glass technology, so on and so forth. So those are really great things to preserve if you can. I know some of it's been lost, but what we can do if you should create a historic district is document that building and know that if they wanted to put an easement, get the tax benefits, and bring that building back, we know where to start from and how that process would work. You know, that's a partnership with you guys and the state and the developer of, you know, really improving entrances to buildings. It just gives that depth and character of what you would want to see. So I added this in here just so that anyone who is looking at a building would perhaps, we could start a conversation of discussing what that building was or is or what really could be, in terms of making sure we don't lose, that entryway. Building colors, obviously, once again, we want neutral earth tone. This was kind of the palette I picked. I'm open to suggestions, if we can talk about later if we want to see.
So Alex, I'm gonna channel my inner Marlena Swindell for a second.
Don't know who that is, go ahead.
She's one of the city commission members.
Okay.
She says, are we just trying to have a tan city? We recently had a building at Genesee and Saginaw Street, which was painted what I would call Smurf blue. Is there a place, to have more exciting colors outside of perhaps the historical downtown area?
So I'll we can talk about that. I can just bring up in for historic districts. Color is something that I think you guys should revisit how you regulate this, because traditionally speaking, as wood lathes came about, tin cans, painting, the Edwardian period on, paint color was much more richer, if you will, in historic districts than I think we were led to believe. That's been lost a lot. If you look at old documentation, I know there wasn't color pictures, but in the text, you'll see that historic districts. On the neutral earth tone colors, there is in the ordinance right now, Mike, to possibly answer that, is high intensity colors. We're not allowing high intensity colors. That's an option that we could evaluate and see what we, for accents. And talk about that. Color is one of those things that is,
Because you got a McDonald's that's got bright red and bright
yeah,
yellow.
right. I think we should talk about it more, perhaps, in terms of subcommittee or look at design elements, because some communities have continued on the tradition of neutral earth tone colors, while it's kind of in historic districts, it's been tough to actually require that of folks based on court cases. So I think that's a good point. I think it's worthwhile to look at and perhaps look at how, not just primary, but accent colors and what the scale can be in terms of color. So I think it's a good point. I'll be happy to talk about it some other time.
I guess I'm also just a little opposed, considering what I do, to being paternalistic to businesses. Businesses in a laissez-faire kind of atmosphere, they should know what's best to draw their customers in.
Yeah.
It's just my personal feelings, but I understand the need to protect the historical nature of the downtown area, even though we have a building with a bright orange side that faces right at City Hall. But I'm at least open to the idea of increasing the amount of and intensity of colors we permit in the community. But these are the locals, so you guys have thoughts on that?
Well, my concern is, number one, I spend way too much time in my life talking about paint colors. I'll bring you guys up to speed on that. When you have, so intense colors don't bother me. There's some beautiful painted ladies right down the street here, which they're mostly painted. And I think they look fantastic, and I think there's a place for it, but where I see there being a problem, like at least for me specifically, you have some new industries in Lapeer that haven't been necessarily super popular. And, if you're allowed to have fluorescent green and fluorescent green lights and just, it's a question of personal taste and what you view as acceptable, right? I'm not opposed to opening up, but I think there should be somewhat of a limited cap on that. It's just, my concern is that, when you go down M24, even though it's not a historical district, are we turning it into Las Vegas? What is it, right? I mean, I think you can do both. Like, you look at the gas stations that have recently been improved here in town, on the two corners there, fantastic. And they don't have a lot of wild colors to them, right? But I've also seen some beautiful painted lady Victorian homes right over here that look fantastic too. So, you know, just, I've spent a lot of time with this, and you have to think about color on a grand scheme. Right? When you see it in the small spaces, it changes when you see it on a bigger level, the intensity of the reaction to it. So, you know, to give carte blanche to industry with this, I don't think it's a good idea. I think there should be a cap, whether it's like, you know, you expand what accent means, you know, is that 10% of the building, 20? I mean, I think making that more is certainly okay, but I would be careful to, because someone will, they're gonna come to you and wanna paint a building like a vibrant green. And that will look, to me, in my opinion, number one, it's not appealing as a customer, but for our city, what are we trying to present, right? So that's just my opinion.
So is it up to the customer to then decide? Why is it our decision?
Well, it isn't our decision, but we are making decisions for the community. We do it every time we're here, right?
I
So
think you guys bring it, not to interrupt, I think you have to bring it both points. I think the thing is a lot of times builders tend to go into a cost-effective arbitrage model of, I'm gonna pick a material that is, I have a bunch of it, I'm gonna use it here now. I've seen it already in your community. So you have to safeguard yourself from that scenario of saying, oh, you know, it's not really, you know, yeah, some large businesses are pretty, you know, keen on what colors work and how customers feel about coming in, but, you know, that tends to be larger businesses. They have the funding and studies to prove that. Smaller businesses, maybe not. And so it can be almost a free-for-all, and you're gonna get buildings that are trying their best, but, you know, they maybe are, you know, really combining colors that, you know, it's not that color, it's the combination of colors. And then more importantly, it's a where and how. So, you know, certain areas can be opened up to other areas, perhaps, you know, it's not a big deal, but that's up for you guys to decide. I mean, it's a conversation. I think right now it's a little bit limited, maybe, you know, earth tones. I mean, you have accent, but then it also becomes a discussion when the developer comes before you. You've seen that already with, you know, the car wash that had a lot of different colors, and you guys wanted other colors, and it all worked out, I guess, in the end, and we'll see how that all works out. But it's a balance. It's part of the process. Communities are definitely looking at this.
yeah, I was just
and
giving
kind of trying to break the mold. And,
my perspective of dealing with this
Yeah.
stuff for so long. You know, some of it is my personal opinion, but it is also based on experience, and I can't determine what someone's gonna like or not. I mean, someone's trash is another person's treasure.
Yeah.
But just my input on it.
And so what communities have done is they've kind of allowed more flexibility and not one thing to dominate, so you don't have this bright, you know, colored building or whatever it is that you might be a lightning rod. It's how can we have complementary materials, and so that one thing doesn't dominate. It's a combination between steel, glass, masonry, you know, brick, wood, whatever it may be, to have a building that's rich, not just in just a color, but of materials and an overall look. So that's how some communities have done that.
Some of the buildings stand out because of the accent colors, and I think that's,
Yeah.
there's one in particular where Teriyaki Madness currently sits, that was painted very vibrant green, stood out like a sore thumb, and it looked like garbage, in my personal opinion. That's what I'm talking about. You know, just, it was the whole front of that, and right next to Little Caesars there, and every time I drive by that, I'm like, I wish they would paint that, that looks terrible, but.
T-Mobile.
Not T-Mobile, it's where Teriyaki Madness is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but again, like, you know, it's just my opinion, so.
I agree with Doug, really kind of regarding color. I think we could utilize some of these really fluorescent colors, like maybe as an accent. But I think to say that they are allowed to be predominantly, I mean, you could end up with like, how are you gonna control that? What if one building says, well, I want it to be like a hot pink, I want mine to be bright yellow? I mean, you could have a real, like you said, it could look like the Las Vegas Strip. And I don't wanna live in a community that looks like that.
If you wouldn't paint a wall in your house, then why would you paint a building?
I know that, you know, you have You should be able to paint what you want, but you also have to like know that you're in a community of, I don't know,
I think the good thing is there's not too many business models out there that would think that drawing attention to their business with a gaudy paint color. I don't
But
think
if
there's too many.
Sherwin-Williams knocked off 50%, you're gonna think about it.
Sherwin-Williams needs to do a lot more.
Well, and I just want to respond to Mike. So that building you're talking
Oh,
about,
really? Oh, yeah,
that's
sorry.
what was
No
painted
pun
was not
intended.
what was approved. That color shouldn't be there.
Oh, I know.
Okay. I'm
Under
just
current,
like-
current rules, current rules.
No, even then,
No, even then, it was, what was approved was not what was painted.
What are you
the
talking about?
swab that
Down the
was
street.
Oh, the orange one.
given,
Orange.
I thought you were talking about the Smurf building.
Oh, no, down the street.
I haven't
But
seen
just
that.
the simple
Scale,
fact it's called the Smurf
That
Building
looked a
kind
lot
of is my
different than
point.
what was
That's
presented to Caitlin. It was presented like a
Right,
darker
right.
terracotta, and
Right.
then when it was.
It was very
on the
subtle. It was
scale-
like orange.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Jeff?
Okay, is there anything that prevents us from designating where we want accent colors placed and what percentage of the building it can be?
Most communities, no, that's not, that, usually it's not, I mean, unless you have extremely strict district regulations. Typically, that's not the case. It's like, you can say 10% can be of one of these colors-ish. And so you kind of allow something to be brighter and have a pop, if you will, but yet not over-dominate and have the Las Vegas Strip in, along the road. But, so it's, why do we have tones, earth tones generally, is because to protect against what people deem to be, unappealing. And so you can allow the unappealing or the, arbitrary thought as minimize it to a percentage or ratio of the building. And so you have it as accent or prohibited. So there is an opportunity there, and that's kind of a sliding scale-ish, and that becomes before you guys for you guys' opinion, so.
The one final thing to think about is, we do want our downtown to be visually appealing. When you're walking down the street and everything's tan, it is the most boring place to be. So what do we do in our downtown? What does Jim Alt done to our downtown? There are
Beautiful murals.
murals everywhere, right? They're not tan murals. They're popped colors, right? They're very interesting to look at. So we could, and again, I'm not saying one way or the other, but we could extend that to a certain extent into colors of buildings, colors of accents.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree with that
There's
too.
kind of a science behind color. I mean, color can make you feel sad, happy, depressed.
Did you just call art science?
Well, I mean, you live in the paint
I've spent
world.
way too much time talking about this.
But there's
Yeah.
certain colors that,
Yeah.
help set the mood, so to speak. And I don't know if I would want to see a hot pink building, or, I wouldn't mind the accents, or, I don't want to squelch the artistic mind, but, I'd have to see some examples of other cities, and, if they have a building with multiple colors, how that looks or how that fits in, but, I mean, we do have to set a standard up here, that's what we're doing, as planning commissioners, and like, we set the standard for our community, and, I don't mind splash of color here or there, but, once you lift standards and I don't think we're talking about the wild, wild west here, but, but there's standards that we need to maintain, and we don't want, I know Las Vegas has been brought up, but,
I can assure you.
you just want that, you want the right vibe.
I can
If
assure
that
you
makes
there are
sense.
business people that will go too far with this. Because that's their way of getting
And that's what I'm
attention
saying,
and-
like, we need to set a
Yeah.
standard, so to speak, of what we feel the community would wanna see.
Well, like Mike said, I mean, if you drive through town, everything looks the same, nothing stands out,
Right.
right? So it's, to me, just kind of finding that percentage balance that makes sense. And I don't think it needs to be like, I feel like I've already overthought this, but classy with a little art side to it is basically what you're asking for. And I agree with that totally. I just don't know how to,
I'll say try writing that into the ordinance. It's gotta be
gotta
classy
be
and
classy.
artistic.
and whose opinion?
Yeah.
Doug's
Alex, does our ordinance allow for corporate colors? Trademark colors? I just think of the McDonald's in, was it New Mexico, where they're not allowed to have yellow, so it's a turquoise blue instead.
Really?
And it's the only non-yellow McDonald's in the country.
Not allowed to have yellow.
No.
Is there, I'm just thinking, is there a way that we can have a third category where it's like, we have our neutral colors that we want most businesses to have most of these kind of colors as a base, but then there's a second category of maybe more fun colors, but not quite neon colors or bright colors, something that gives them flexibility that they could add.
Well, this goes back to what you
And then if they
define
wanted
as,
to approve some
you
bright
define as
trim.
earth tone, right? So we've had this argument many times, but when we think of water, even though it's clear, we think it's blue. 75% of the earth is blue. It's not defined as an earth tone. What's that?
Did you say 70% of?
75% of the earth is covered in water.
Well,
Oh, true.
not to be pedantic about it, but water's actually clear.
That's why I said,
Right.
but we presume it to be blue, right?
The sky is blue and it reflects the light, so, yeah.
That's more earth tone.
Here we go.
It's also, to me, color and definition and opinion is individual.
Do you want to talk about Detroit Lions football?
I would rather talk, I've spent so much time doing this. It's arbitrary, and I think you can do both. I think you can have the nice, modest, classical look with a little bit of art and pizzazz, because I think we're seeing it downtown. I think it's great. I just don't know how to articulate that into a rule or a standard.
It's called being
All right.
flexible.
So going back to roof design, I've thought of pretty much every roof I can think of. The M-shaped roof, I don't know how popular that is, but we have that included as well there at the bottom right. So what what we have here is a model of all the different overhang, eaves, peak roofs, elements. So just to get an idea of what developers might be thinking. Generally, it's not the topic, but when it does become the topic, it does become a pretty popular topic because a lot of people have an opinion about roofs, particularly if it's not a flat or pitched roof.
Alex, I don't see onion roofs in here.
What's an onion roof?
Yeah.
But we
Like-
have the bell roof.
Like what you see in St. Basil's and next to the Kremlin?
Oh.
Greek Orthodox
Yeah.
church roofs?
Yeah,
Okay.
That butterfly roof's interesting.
the butterfly roof, and like I said, mine is that M-shaped roof. I just can't imagine the drainage. You really have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we eliminate that? I'm not a big fan.
So going back on the roofs here, climbing up. Articulate, we have conceal, the flat roof needs to conceal all the equipment. We have that language in there. We're showing, demonstrating to them how they need to hide the HVAC system. Talk about roof design, overhang, eaves. We have some designs here of what they may be talking about or intending to do, or more importantly, what might work for their design. So to just kind of brainstorm with them, because sometimes this is an item that's generally overlooked, the overhang. So I've included that into it. And that's kind of all I have. So I do have some notes from you guys here to talk about, and I know this has been a discussion that's been hanging around for a little bit. So kind of what are your thoughts, if there's anything else that, just ideas that I can maybe put pen to paper?
What's the deal with the garage door facing the highway? What's the big hang up there?
Garage doors, like big
Yeah.
overhang doors?
Yeah, what's the big deal about, we got them all over the place,
Yeah.
houses, businesses, now all of a sudden.
Well, not houses, but businesses, commercial, industrial overhang, big oversized garage doors, what you're saying.
Yeah, like muffler man on the corner,
Well, it gives a very industrial impression. That's what I think it gives.
Because we had this discussion about Tommy's Car Wash, correct?
yes.
And I'm trying to think, I don't remember how that was resolved without that door.
Did they move, they changed where so you couldn't see the doors, the bays, from the front? I can't remember now.
That's always been something that's like, what the heck? I mean,
So it can,
Why we allow it, or I mean, not allow it, or
not allow it, yeah.
you prohibit it currently, right, facing the street.
That's what you're saying. I mean, that's.
Well, that's what your ordinance says.
He's asking why we have to have it
Why
that
are
way.
we
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what he's asking.
denying a door facing a highway?
my,
I just don't see the.
Mostly it's
logic.
just the industrial nature or look of that building and that, generally it's just a steel mass. It's a dominant feature. You know, a lot of times it's just wide open. There's just trucks hanging in and out. So most communities have said, look, you can have it, it's not a problem, we understand the purpose of it, but we don't want that facing the street. It breaks up the continuity of buildings, proportions, glass, doorways, you just have these holes in buildings. And so, you know, I'm not saying this is my opinion, but this is general consensus of the planning and zoning world of saying, that's great, it's just, its purpose or use should probably be in the back of the building. And that's where it's been for a lot of reasons. And so
There's
communities-
decorative doors now, though, that are phenomenal.
Well, if you stop and think about downtown Royal Oak, there's several buildings that, the restaurants and bars, it became very hip to install garage doors.
Yeah,
yep.
Mhm.
But
And
is that
if
the
we had a
same thing
beautiful
we're
rest-
talking about here, though?
It's still an overhead door though, isn't
It
it?
still
Because we have one downtown here.
Yeah,
That's a
Yeah.
garage door.
yeah.
I mean, it's not it's not like this. Is there two?
I just think that, I mean, there's a certain build, this guy's got a build, and has multiple bays, because it's gonna be cars. He's gonna be working on it, pulling in and out. And that's what the lot is determined. I mean, now we've just put them in a corner and you can't have it. That's,
I think you're talking about something that would be very isolated though, if it were to take place, because I mean, when you really stop and look at the development, mostly what we're thinking about is down 24 south of the Taco Bell area where all that is ripe.
well, I mean, you could break up, Marty, you bring up a good point, is that you can break up that category into subcategories of, is it a decorative door opening like you have in downtown? Or is it, you know, something that's just utilitarian in nature, right? So it goes back to the facade of the building. So is the facade to be, some communities have any building face that faces a street. Now, if you have a corner lot, you have two front facing, and you have to have a minimum 30% window or glass. And they do allow doors like that, but it needs to be, has to have a ratio of class to it. So, just like building materials, yeah, you can have color, but if you want the fluorescent or whatever, or you know, accent color, this is the ratio. If you want, you know, that type of door, or that type of window, or that type of roof line, or whatever it may be, you're trying to control, you know, something that can be considered arbitrary. And so, what does it feel? It's up to you guys, right? So we're touching base on this. We're sharing thoughts of, you know, giving you real examples of what you have in your ordinance currently. If you guys are happy with it, then fine, there's no point in doing it. But the idea is to perhaps help investors that come to your community, because there's been obviously an uptake in investment overall in this community. I mean, I work with a lot of them in the third county in this area. I mean, you guys do get a sizable amount of interest. And so with that being said, you know, what the community wants is what we need to put in that ordinance, and being stewards of the community, it's up to you guys. I mean, I'm the consultant, it's not my ordinance, it's yours. You guys have ideas, I come back with options and alternatives, and we work on it, right? You know, I talk with Mike probably all day long about, here are my thoughts, Mike, what's the direction, what do you think? And, you know, I can come back with some new alternatives. So, you know, if you guys want garage doors, great. Or if you guys don't like colors, or we could work on these things. This is something that can be designed to fit your needs. There's tons of examples. It's more about what works for you guys.
Well, the flexibility, right?
I will wait till you're done. I just got a question.
Yeah.
So can we go back to the roof types?
Yeah.
Just for a second?
Still on.
So, huh?
Still on the roofs?
I still have the roofs, yeah. Like, so I just wanna know what our ordinance says. Does it just say that they can have whatever? Or they can have flat, I mean, what does it say currently?
Needs to be a retractable roof. I'm kidding. I'm-
Okay, wow.
I haven't seen one of those.
Yeah, really, I wanna see one of those. No, it's all right. Just wanted to go back and talk about it.
There's some weird designs here, I'll say that.
Yeah. I think even like the butterfly roof is weird. Why would you want the water to clog like that? I don't know how you would get the drain off the top like that.
I don't know.
It just screams too.
Does the ordinance even touch on roof type design? I don't remember seeing anything in
We
there.
have metal roofs here. You know, if it's allowed by the planning commission.
I don't remember ever hearing
There's pitch requirements.
There's pitch requirements, obviously.
That's not really.
So roof design
No.
and, so if your zoning ordinance open 715 01 and it's F, roof design. Be at the minimum overhang of 12 inches. Eaves and peaks we talked about.
There's probably nothing in there that says you have to have a dormer roof or a conical roof.
I mean, are any, I guess my
No.
question is currently, are all of these roofs right here would be allowed?
If they met the pitch requirements.
Yes, if
Well,
they, so,
What about the flat roof? I mean, what do you mean a pitch requirement? Because obviously a flat roof has no pitch.
well, it does have a pitch, this water has to come off, it's very, it's very,
So even that butterfly roof has a pitch?
Well, it's inverted.
I mean, better, that water and snow is gonna build up over time. So, you know, I brought this up in there of showing examples of different roofs, right? And your ordinance has about 4 lines worth of roofs, so someone can come to you and say, what kind of roof? So we have an idea of, you know, 30 of the most popular roofs, except for the one in Europe that Mike brought up, but get an idea of what they're proposing, you know, if that's, so, yeah, I mean, I think overall what we're trying to say is that you do have good elements in your ordinance about design, color, aesthetics. There obviously are some deficiencies, you know, and there's things that we could definitely look at or recommend, but, you know, trying to be, at the same time, I think, reading your ordinance is you're trying to be flexible with developers and allowing them to propose what roof may work for them, as long as they have the pitch requirements.
Well, underneath all of these samples you put at the top, it says architectural methods to conceal flat rooftops, and then you've got down below like samples of some, you know, roofs that have peaks. So are you suggesting as an idea that we not, if we're gonna have, somebody's gonna have a flat rooftop for whatever reason,
Yeah.
they have some kind of like decorative, I don't know, something decorative that would conceal, that would make it not look like a flat roof?
No, it's that they have equipment up there, so sometimes HVAC systems are on the roof or on the roof as
Oh,
opposed to.
oh, because of that, you would,
Right,
okay,
it's
to
not-
hide that.
Okay.
I thought you were
yeah,
trying to
so-
say that flat roofs are not
No, roof- no,
aesthetically
that-
pleasing
you-
or something.
Yeah, you can have that, you can propose whatever roofs that work for you, it's just that if you have equipment up there, it needs to be concealed, we don't wanna see, you know,
Okay.
6 feet of HVAC on top of.
But that's already currently in the ordinance.
Yeah, this
So
was-
what's typed in there, that's what I'm trying to figure
So
out,
we
this
have
is not a
what's
suggestion.
in here, and then, you know, examples of
Okay,
what we're
all right.
alluding to kind of work with the developer, to hand in front of them saying, you know, talk through this, because a lot of times developers aren't necessarily designers, and they don't articulate very well what they're intending to do. I'm sure Kim, they said one thing, and all of a sudden they come back with something completely different, right? I mean, we had that with our good friends at T-Mobile, and it was back and forth, and then it got resolved, but we're trying to minimize that.
She wanna know if this is good to go for now, and then take all their comments and come back with potential work.
Of course, we could always, put this out there and share if someone comes, and then we continue to update it,
So, I mean, this is a lot of good discussion, but we should also just keep in mind that most of these developers have a set plan for what they did in the last town, which is kind of what they've worked out, they've engineered, and they really largely just want to cut, paste. So we can have these standards, but that's at least been my experience. I assume it's been your experience as well.
I usually do it.
Each community is going to have their own individual rules and requirements. And these developers will come in and say, well, this worked in the last town, we're just going to submit it, hopefully that it gets approved. And then, of course, it's on staff to say, no, here are the 12 violations, or here's what you don't meet our ordinances. So it's a hard meet-up between those two. The copy paste is obviously easiest, cheapest for the developer, but we, the planning commission, the city commission, have set standards for what we want our city to look like too. So there's where you get the problem, because then you get developers who are saying, oh no, well, they're gonna make it so difficult for us to develop in your community. But we also want our community to look nice, right?
So can't we just provide Alex, like, we could email him, each of us, our suggestions, our thoughts, and then he could gather those all up and then come back, I don't know if it could be next month, I don't know, we'll get on the agenda, but come back and then talk again about what we kind of cumulatively all kind of brought up. I don't know, it's just an idea. Because otherwise, it's gonna be to the next month, they're gonna be like, hey, we're gonna talk about that again, and it'll just get pushed out.
I think that's been the one
road.
thing that I've struggled with being on the planning commission is when we have a good discussion like this, it gets tabled, and then when we go back to bring it back up, it's lost all of its traction,
Yeah.
like this building material thing. I'm not
Right.
that interested in building materials. I'm interested in the discussion about it's a changing world. How do we address that? That's, you know what I mean? And then what are the next steps for it? Because if we're up here, we're talking about it, we want to make progress on it, and it's all for this, we're all trying to do the same thing.
Well, I can make it a little bit simpler. Brett and Alex, correct me if I'm wrong. Are we looking to be more protective of the historical nature and the neutral tone colors of our city? Or are we more interested in being more business friendly, more business flexible? Those
I
are
think you
two.
can do both. I think they can be.
I think you absolutely
They can be mutually, I don't want to say exclusive, but I think you can work with both of those. It can't be, it doesn't have to be one or the
Take
other.
Walmart and Grand Blanc. It is a beautiful brick building. We don't have the same building with Walmart here in Lapeer because we didn't demand it. And to me, that's the difference, right? I don't think it means that you're difficult because you have a set of standards. It's, I guess the way I look at it is I'm a little more user-friendly with the mom and pops of town because we're not dealing with these large corporations, right? And so I work for one. They're the ones that are going to cut corners and take liberty and try to push you around and get the most bang for their buck, where the smaller business owner has less to work with. So, in my opinion, I'm a little more flexible when it comes to the local stuff, right? Expecting a Sherwin-Williams to follow the rules of Lapeer is not egregious. That's what we should do, right? Because otherwise, they're gonna put the cheapest building they can. I've seen it.
Well, I think it's, the real approach needs to be looking at examples of what you guys think. Obviously I've gotten some of your general feedback, I kind of get an idea of what you guys are looking at, but looking at examples of design elements that you think fit the nature of your community. And just like you have zoning districts, you can have the same rules for design elements within those districts, whether it's, along Main or in other parts of the community, of what you allow, because just because one has resources and one, I can tell you small businesses too, I've worked with them for a very long time. They're going to do what's financially best for them as well too. So
Yeah,
that argument
sure.
it works for every business. So it's more about what are the elements that you guys want to see, whether it's a community-wide or by district. It's kind of, like I said, it's your guys' lead. We could get examples and go through exercises, or you could, give me direction as to, hey, coming back with something. It's up to you guys how involved of a process you want this to be. Obviously, it's, you know, everyone wants the best, but when it comes to design, it's, you know, we're trying to put the science and regulations around it to the art component. They do work with each other, but you know, there's gotta be a balance and it's a process. So I hate to say it, but this would be a probably more involved process and longer period of time than perhaps you would probably would see like in other text amendments, because this involves a lot of components, a lot of them.
Well, I'm gonna, whether anybody else does, I'm gonna send you pictures of what I think look like something you would want in our community, at least you have them. I don't know, I think that's just something we should do, we should
Well,
send them
you-
samples of what.
You think about one of the debatable topics that we've had in Lapeer here over the last 5 to 7 years with the, you know, marijuana industry, and I don't want to get into the whole, everybody's got their opinion, and I don't really care about that. But look at the buildings that they put up here in Lapeer. They're pretty nice. So if you're gonna have them, hold them to a standard. You go to other communities, because I'm all over the state of Michigan and Indiana, fluorescent green, just god-awful looking buildings. They were let to run loose with no standards for their community, right? We have an expectation, and you go to some of the buildings, and they're some of the best looking buildings that we have. And to me, that's the best case scenario. You're friendly to business, but you have standards. And I think that's exactly what we're doing, even though it's not always agreed upon and comfortable when we're talking about it. I think that's exactly what we're doing right now. To Mike's point, we need to be business friendly, so there needs to be flexibility. But, you know, I'm just I want to be careful on the definition of that. Like, is an accent color 20% or 50, right? Because that's a huge difference to me. That's all I think that I mean by all of that, like all of my opinions on that, so.
Again, not to get too deep into the woods, because we've had a lot of discussion on this matter, but by and large, businesses are not gonna come to the community or not come to the community based on what colors you allow them to paint their building.
I agree.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of other work that goes on before they make a decision about where they wanna go and build a building.
I just happen to work for one of those monsters, and I inherently don't trust them.
Okay, so is this good to hang out, guys? Do you want me to like work on the formatting and making it pretty Word document, or?
I'm gonna send you some examples.
No.
I'm not sure about these things yet, but I'm gonna send you examples of what I think are good.
Okay.
You know, because I just
I
expect
think we
everything to be
should talk-
perfect next time.
I think we should, do we have time as the next agenda allow us to talk about this
Actually, we have
again?
no business on the agenda, so if we don't get anything by Wednesday, it's gonna be canceled. And with the holidays, I don't think he's gonna have enough time to prepare something for the January 9th meeting.
But what if we do February and you get like 10 site plans? Are we gonna have time to do it then?
I'm not aware of any site plans that are.
I'll say 10 set points in February, that's optimistic. I like that.
Well, I'm just trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, so could you please read our mind, take everything that we
Okay.
said, summarize it, and then present it.
And write an ordinance
If
too.
you could tell me what I've said, I would be impressed.
Come back with the Las Vegas ordinance, neon signs. You can do it.
Do it.
All right, any other
Neon signs.
any other discussion on earth tones and building shapes? With nothing being said, we're gonna move on to correspondence. I believe that goes to Kim. Is that correct?
Development activities is as reported.
As reported, okay. Training report?
Yeah, there's a number, MAP has come out with a whole bunch of trainings I listed on here, so if you're interested, please look on their website. There's an email blast that went out, perhaps many of you get that last week.
Yep.
A lot of these are virtual, so that's a great thing, and they're less expensive. And so one of them was site plan reviews. I know you guys get site plans, they come before you. If you want to take a trip down to Ann Arbor area, you're welcome, and they do a pretty good job of giving you the basics of what site plan review looks like, so that you guys can perhaps get training if you like on reviewing those. Community engagement, Washtenaw County, this is the afternoon and evening sessions. And then Blight Be Gone, an online training on blight. Managing risk is a pretty good one about developments and projects. Planning and zoning essentials. So March 18th in person in Frankenmuth, not that far away, but they're breaking up that one-day session for lesser cost on the 19th and 20th. It's online. I think you might see a familiar face that the guy that was in this chair before, I think, is doing it, so he told me last, I don't know. And then obviously, also on the 18th, it's the afternoon and evening, is for getting the development you want, talking about planning and zoning essentials, looking at projects and talking about things that we talked about today, of make sure it fits your community. So there's a number of trainings out there, there's more of them. I thought this was kind of the better list of ones that I think are more focused to your guys' needs, and, yeah.
It's on the map, 'cause you don't say where they're.
No, I said map, yeah, earlier.
I
It's
have a
on-
question about the location. So there are 2 on there that are in Frankenmuth. So what do they have that it takes that they get to have a seminar at their location and we can't get one here?
Zenders.
I don't know,
Right.
I wonder about that. It's been the
Prost.
same place in Frankenmuth for like years.
So we talked about, actually, is there a way that, maybe somebody, maybe it's you, but that we could have a specific, planning and zoning essential meeting for us to be trained on. We could do it at a separate time if we don't want to do it on the planning commission night, and just to be here so that we don't have to drive, 45 minutes to Frankenmuth.
So they will come
So-
on site, but it's very expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, but you can do the online. If you miss it, you can do it at your own pace.
Yeah, but you know how hard it is to do that? To actually find like the time, I mean, that's really hard to do. It's easy to sit there and say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get to that, I'll get to that, and is it online where you have to be there at a certain time? Or is it like
if you can watch it later.
Right, that's the thing.
You
Then
can do
always
it
use the
then,
excuse,
or-
I'll just do it later, I'll
or
just
you
do it
could-
later.
Well,
So
Procrastinate.
I'm doing Blight Be Gone, and I think it's 6 to 8:30 online. And then I'm also doing community engagement on the 11th, which I'll have to drive down to Washtenaw for. But is it basic citizen planner, which is, there's a whole.
now it's like, it runs throughout the year. You can do it. at
Well,
your
but
own
there's,
pace.
there's in-person ones, but there's also like at your own pace
Yeah, there is
series
that
of,
one. Yeah, that's, you can just sign up and do that. Yeah, and that's good too. I could put that on there, but I could email you guys like last time.
And there's a budget for this, paid for through the city, so contact him if you guys are interested in doing it, him and the city pay for it.
So who puts these on?
Michigan Association of Planning, map?
Yeah, so, but I'll email you guys. Did I send it already, or?
Yeah, you sent
I
them a
s-
bunch.
Yeah, so it's the same site. They just, when they come up, and they just email blast all of us.
Okay, moving on to commissioner comments. We'll start off, Mr. Marty.
Just gonna throw some kudos out there to the pump track on that committee, but there's another gentleman, 2 of them in this room, that only one is here, but pretty fun project, grassroots. I think it's pretty neat. I think we need more of that in this community. It's gonna be a good development if it goes full throttle and gets done. It's gonna be great for this community.
Good.
That's all I got.
And we'll move over here to our newest member, one of them, Audrey.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I'll just say, first of all, thank you for allowing me to be here, Mayor and the Commission. Just to introduce myself a little bit, I'll take a minute to do that. My husband and I have lived in the city for almost 14 years, been married for almost 15, and we have 3 boys in school, 6th, 4th, and 2nd grade. And so I'm really glad to be part of the city community now. We've lived here for so long and haven't been able to really get engaged in what's happening in the city. So this is exciting for me just to get to know who's here and what the city's doing and have a voice. So thank you.
Mr. Atwood.
Well, Merry Christmas to everyone. Welcome the newest members to the Planning Commission. And Thanks for showing up, everyone.
We're down to Catherine. I don't know how I'm supposed to do this.
Hey, any way you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
So welcome Audrey and Jeff. And I thought you did an excellent job tonight running the meeting.
I was nervous.
And, yeah, I'm gonna keep plugging for a local seminar. Something local here. And I don't have anything else. Thank you.
Go over to Mr. Jeff.
Just thank you for letting me serve
Welcome
the
back.
community. Thank you. I'll try to do my best.
Okay. Ms. Mayor?
Just that I'd like to welcome again Audrey and Jeff. Happy to have you both here. I'm gonna repeat what Joshua said. Merry Christmas, and I wish you a very happy New Year, and be safe, both for Christmas and New Year's, because of this weather and other things, but, no. And other than that, I have nothing. And you did a wonderful job.
Oh, thank you.
You did.
I practice. My wife thinks I'm a little kooky.
You practice.
She told
Well,
me
she already knows that.
She told me the housing commission, she ran one, she did it in 14 minutes, beat that. And I thought we were gonna do it for a minute, and then they brought up paint colors. Well, I'm gonna let Ms. Womack have the last word as city manager. I just wanted to say, welcome to the both of you. I feel like we get stronger with every meeting, and I feel like I'm starting to really kind of understand, not be so opinionated. I can't help it. But I want to wish everybody happy holidays, and look forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
So, Ms. Bostic, you were commenting under your breath a minute ago that you don't want to see any neon signs. There is a sign on the west end of Nipissing, west end, far side of Nipissing, Bay Whimsy Soaps, I think it says. It's a neon sign right in the front window.
Where's that?
It's on the north side of the road on the far end of town. So if you drive out there, especially at night, you'll see it.
By Sherwin-Williams?
Across the street from,
I hope they're not watching.
one of the
But,
new clothing
well,
stores. where
I mean,
Grace
I'm in
Apparel was.
favor of it. I
Oh.
think I made
Kinda
that clear,
across the street
that
on that
I think
corner.
color is
Or
visually
Sherwin.
interesting.
It's Sharia Moore?
And people want
It's
to.
their store?
No, it's across the street,
Oh, it's across the
I think-
street.
right?
From
Isn't that
Sharia
the-
Moore?
Just wait until you're done talking.
Isn't that
Is
it?
it Sharia Moore? I was in there. If it's neon, I've totally missed it.
Okay, well, I saw it earlier today.
Okay, I'll go look.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm in favor of color. I think is it Austin, where the phrase is keeps Austin strange, you know?
Weird.
Weird, thank you. You know, there's a place for conservativeness and colored choices, but it's also nice to have color in your community. And I will extend the Merry Christmas to everybody, and also, this is one of those odd years where Hanukkah also starts on December 25th. So happy Hanukkah.
Okay, well, I guess with that, my first run as the chairperson in waiting, or what am I called, vice chairperson, will conclude the meeting. So adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you know what, we got done too early, I'm sure by the time I get home, supper's not even gonna be ready now. I told Bill 8.
Get right along, like, I found it happened in marijuana business. No, honestly, guys, I feel okay to say every place doesn't have any color they want.
Well, and that's been my whole kind of the.
You know the like bright colors they have?
First got me in, I lived 2 blocks from
Oh,
here.
the whole island?
Very opinionated on episodes.
There's a population
We don't have parades on 21.
It was nice to meet you.
We don't base our
Nice to meet you,
community on
Audrey.
69 or
Yeah.
21, we base our community.
Welcome aboard.
Right? And so,
Well, that's what it's all about.
it's complicated here, growing, I got Jefferson Street.
Well,
And I'm
that's not where we are as a society.
Well, I know, but
Every business wants to thrive. Why? Americans are fat, lazy.
well, that's why I'm a big fan of the not letting the legal company have these fast foods, because, I mean, they're talking about $14 an hour jobs.
I don't have that.
And I'm not concerned about McDonald's making like money, nor am I concerned about Sherwin-Williams, because these are corporations, and I think you can free But those are great examples of when you need to put your foot down.
Yeah, that's good.
Because
Yeah, that's
they either